NDTV Control All Defense, powered by IFCO Tokyo. Good to have you back here on the Control All Defense episode, and what a week it has been, Vishnu. The battle was in Parliament. Sindoor has been, done for a while, but unsurprisingly, we cannot seem to shake Operation Sindoor off the podcast, certainly, and most certainly not from the national conversation as well. But I have in my hands, Vishnu and I decided to do something very interesting this time. Very loud debate in Parliament, Vishnu.
Yeah.
All the big guns of the government and the big guns of the opposition had their say. You had Rahul Gandhi, you had Priyanka Gandhi,
Yeah.
you had Chidambaram, and so many others saying, loud things about Operation Sindoor, raising questions. Democracy in motion, vibrant debate, even though there's this ugly friction going on between the government. But that doesn't concern us. What concerns you and me, of course, is the questions being asked, the answers being given, or in some cases not being given, and whether some of the things being said, were damaging, were they just purely political, were they even right, were they correct? So this episode, viewer and listener, my friends, is going to be about a little bit of fact-checking, a little bit of clarification, maybe a little bit of jargon busting, myth busting, maybe a little bit of alignment. So I don't want people to take offense to this. Vishnu and I anyway are the trolls' favorite citizens on social media.
We're on the edge of getting into trouble with every podcast.
Yeah, this is going to get us into trouble because people are going to say Gandhi media, this, that and the other. You're picking up what the opposition says. But I promise you it's not that, because this is in the interests of reality and facts, and Operation Sindoor most certainly deserves that. So Vishnu, let's dive right into it, right? Rahul Gandhi talks about, and this was the opening claim by him in his speech in Parliament, where he said that the government tied the hands of the Air Force. He quoted, a defense attaché in Indonesia. We remember that little controversy. He quoted the Chief of Defense Staff. He very loudly made the claim that the government had tied the hands of the Indian Air Force and ordered them not to go after military targets. And that is the reason why, and we will get to that also, we lost some aircraft. But this hands tying business, what do you think?
What exactly did Rahul Gandhi want? A nuclear war between India and Pakistan? No, because
You want me to answer that?
Because honest to God, the moment you make a statement that the defense minister has said this in Parliament itself, that we told Pakistan we will not attack your air defense systems, it's a cherry-pick statement taken without reflecting a particular context.
Yeah.
And what is that context? India wanted to right-size this conflict from the very beginning. Why? What was your stated objective? There was Pahalgam, there were terror attacks. We needed to take out the hub of terror attacks. Did we just go and hit one terror site? No. We hit one more than 100 kilometers away in Pakistani Punjab. Whether it's Kotli, whether it's Muzaffarabad, whether it's Muridke, whether it's Bahawalpur, and any number of other areas, right? The Sayyidna Bilal camp, which we got pictures of, that's what India wanted to do. And therefore, once we did that, as a responsible country and not one that hides military actions, our DGMO picked up the phone and said, look, this is what we've done. This is in response to this. It is not our intention to make this bigger. Was the Director General of Military Operations acting on behalf of the government or on orders from the government wrong in saying what he did? What exactly did you want him to say? No, look, you've hit us with Pahalgam and it's terrible, and so now it's all-out war with us, and we know you're a nuclear power, but we are going to go and push that entire thing. I mean, there needs to be an element of maturity in
That is not
our political statements in Parliament. And in as much as the Congress is going to hit out at me and troll me for saying this, the fact of the matter is
that ship has sailed. That ship has sailed.
No. The thing is, there's a lot which Rahul Gandhi says, which I agree with on Op Sindoor as well.
No, he's right to ask questions.
I do believe there needs to be a great deal more transparency in a lot of issues. However, on this entire issue, that why did you tell Pakistan that this is where it's going to end?
Yeah.
No, it's not that. What did we do when Pakistan chose not to accept that statement? They hit us. What did we do? We hit them even harder. J.D. Vance came in, spoke to the Prime Minister and said, look, We now believe that Pakistan is going to hit you even harder. What did the Prime Minister say? The Prime Minister said, well, they better be careful.
Yeah.
And when we hit them, when we knocked out their air bases, right, several of them,
all across the country.
Yeah, the Rahimyar Khan crater done by a BrahMos is still sitting there as a crater with a notice to airmen, which still exists.
Yeah.
Right? It shows the effectiveness of the Indian attacks. So at what stage was India not acting as or moving away from confronting Pakistan directly?
Yeah.
But it goes through stages.
Yeah.
You don't go and you don't
nuke the country at those first step.
We didn't use the Navy. Why? Will now some political leaders say that India chickened out from fighting Pakistan by not using the Navy?
I don't think, we should send our podcast to some of these people, because then that will become a question that is asked in Parliament. Dekho, Navy ko ka istemal nahi kiya.
Yeah, Navy ko therefore Navy has been kept out.
They tied the Navy's hands also.
They tied the Navy's hands. So why score political points of national security?
Yeah.
And this is something, regrettably, that many in the Congress have done in the past as well.
Yeah.
There was a different context when the entire Rafale issue became the central narrative in an election in this country, an issue of national security. Of course, the linkage over there were to allegations of corruption. But if you actually went through a lot of the documentation, which we did, we didn't feel it was substantive enough. Ultimately, what does the Supreme Court have to say?
Yeah.
Right? But keep that aside, right? Because again, you could argue that the government was being obtuse in terms of information that it provided on that particular deal. But over here, to say that, the arms of the armed forces had been tied, you went and told the Pakistanis you were restricting your attacks, that's not correct. That's cherry-picked information.
So we've sorted out the hands tied rubbish.
Yeah.
That's just ignorance, I think. So I think we've fact-checked that bit. The second one is actually Rahul Gandhi and the Congress's favorite, which is Pakistan ko pehle kyun bataya? They've been saying it before Parliament convened. They've accused Jaishankar of, inadvertently spilling out this information that Pakistan was told that we're going to come only after your terror targets and not your military targets.
Yeah.
This has been spun into a very angry assertion in Parliament by the big guns of the Congress party, which is like a kind of one step forward from the hands tied allegation, which is that Pakistan ko pehle kyun bataya? Why was Pakistan informed in advance? The allegation is, I think it was Gaurav Gogoi who said it, and then Rahul Gandhi echoed it as well, that you've pre-informed Pakistan that we're going to come and attack you. And that's why they were waiting for you. And that's how you guys got damaged in the first. That's why there were tactical mistakes. What do you say to that?
What did George W. Bush say after 26/11? He said that this is a war. This is now a war. We are getting into a war.
Yeah.
What did Benjamin Netanyahu say when hundreds of Israeli and other nationals were killed after the Hamas terrorist attack? He said that this is now a war. Well, what did India say? That there will be a response.
Yeah.
Right? What does any political leadership confronted by a grave national security sort of concern say? You have stated your objective. That is a bold statement of fact. You would be taken to the cleaners if you didn't act on it. Did this government not act on it? No, they acted on it. You can judge the merits of the success of the operations. Talk about the operations themselves. But why, take random remarks and not quite get the point about what was being said? Yeah. Of course the government would say we're going to hit you. Do you think after Pahalgam the government would stay quiet? Forget this. What would the Congress have been done if there was a terrorist attack and they were
after you? Yeah.
Would they have kept quiet?
No, absolutely. I know what you're saying. And, the merits of the success of Operation Sindoor, even though on this podcast we repeatedly acknowledge that there are many things we still don't know. But what we do know is spectacular. It's emphatic. You've reported on it so much, Vishnu. And what we do know, categorically know about Operation Sindoor is that it was a phenomenal success for India. It
was a phenomenal success, Shiv. Sorry to interrupt, but I do want to, in a sense, balance what I am saying.
Yeah.
not just for the sake of balance, because I do believe there were important points that the Congress made. If Rahul Gandhi says in Parliament that we've heard reports that there have been 5 aircraft which have been downed, then let's get clarity. We are, and I've been saying this, we've said this in previous podcasts. I think you agree with me. If there are military losses, let's accept military losses. And in as much as countries like Israel or others do not reveal the extent or the success or failures of several weapon systems, in a situation like this, where the allegations of fighter aircraft, each one costing 94 million euro or 92 million euro a piece, right, having been lost, then say it.
Yeah.
It's not enough for the defense minister to have just said in an exam results matter, not whether the pencil broke or the pen was lost. I don't believe that that is good enough a statement. I do believe there needs to be a forthright statement without getting into tactical details, because this is technical information the Pakistanis are waiting to hear every word of. But if you accept losses, then you accept losses. We're fighting a war.
No, true. But, there are all these, there are propaganda ramifications.
That's
there are
true.
political ramifications, as a result of which it has become a more emotive issue than it probably should be. You and I agree on this. I was actually someone who, deleted a tweet that's become like a viral thing where I talked about, the possibility of aircraft going down. I don't know that for a fact, but, I pulled it out because I recognize that it's a fog of war situation and it's probably not a good idea to put it out there. But apart from the rightfulness of the questions being asked, there's also an intent issue here. There's a political intent issue here. And when you're talking about things like your hands being tied, deliberately misrepresenting the idea of Pakistan ko kyun bataya, then these questions become colored politically, and then they become damaging.
Neither are they substantive when you're fighting a war. They are not substantive when you're talking about a war.
Absolutely. And the point I was making, Vishnu, about Operation Sindoor being a success is not chest thumping. Whether it is imagery, whether it is, if you contrast damage in India, there was absolutely nothing. Whether it is the fact that within 4 days Pakistan came to you asking for a ceasefire, whether it is the fact that against a reasonable amount of pretty high performance equipment, India prevailed overwhelmingly so, and paralyzed an entire country's air defense system so much so that they came to the table. These are undeniable facts, right? Now you've got a situation where, you got the ceasefire in 4 days, but who made that ceasefire happen? Why did you make the ceasefire? There's this incredible amount of goalpost shifting. So now we've got 2 things out of the way. Let's come to the third thing.
Jaishankar.
Yeah.
No, the entire Trump claim.
The Trump claim.
Why has Trump ended the war?
Yeah. Why did we listen to Trump?
Well, why don't we listen to what Jaishankar has said?
Jhukna is the word that has been used repeatedly.
But this is something... So here's the quote from Dr. Jaishankar, Foreign Minister of India, in Parliament, recorded statement on fact, quote, there was no phone call between President Trump and Prime Minister Modi from the 22nd of April to the 16th of June. That's what he said. Anyone claiming otherwise should listen carefully.
Yeah.
Now, if Donald Trump decides to say this, and your foreign minister on record, not for the first time, but he said this on several occasions, right? Keep saying this, and who are you going to believe, Trump or your foreign minister? Why do you assume the foreign minister of India is lying on this? And I can also tell you, because there's something I reported.
Yeah.
As part of a briefing, the date by date, virtually minute by minute, timing of the conversations, who called who, what exactly happened, never, ever had any mention of Donald Trump or trade having come into the picture. We're going to stop trade between India and the US if you don't stop fighting with Pakistan. It never emerged.
Yeah.
What did emerge, and what was reiterated by the foreign minister in Parliament, and I think others, I forget who, that J.D. Vance, the vice president, did speak to the foreign minister, did speak to, I believe, to the prime minister as well, saying Pakistan is planning something big. He was right. They were. They came in with drones, they came in with missiles, and they got hammered after that. Right? So, Donald Trump says something in the morning and then he changes his mind by the evening.
Yeah.
But we know the sequence of events, and you've said that he's not spoken to the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
So where is this entire business of trade happening?
The Prime
we
Minister,
will stop trade with you.
The Prime Minister Modi categorically said in Parliament that no world leader has gotten into this whole thing. There were no calls from anyone.
And again, in that briefing, I was categorically told by people directly in the loop that India was not looking for mediation.
Yeah.
Why would we look for mediation? As it is, we've had a problem with mediation at the best of times. What is our time-tested position on Kashmir? That there shouldn't be any mediator.
Correct.
If there are to be talks, it'll be India and Pakistan. Not that we're looking at talks
No,
now.
and just on this mediation issue, because since all the big guns of the Congress, they all talked about this mediation issue, why we listening to Trump, etc. Well, Trump himself has contradicted himself. He's scored this enormous self-goal with this tariff bomb. Now, you can accuse me of this being semantics, but by dropping this huge tariff bomb on India, hasn't he, Vishnu, basically confirmed that he has been dishonest all along in his claim that there was a ceasefire for trade deal offer and that India actually exercised that offer?
Dishonesty might change to honesty by the morning. We don't know with him. It might change. But that's a separate point.
But I think the short point of this bit is it's probably not very smart to latch on to what Trump is saying.
No, and who came to the ceasefire table? How many times have I said this in our 14 odd podcasts? About 100 times? Okay, literally about 7 to 8 times.
Yeah.
But let's look at the sequence of events. When we went and struck Pakistan, their terror camps, our DGMO called up their DGMO and said, look, this is it. This is how we want to right-size this thing. We don't want to expand it. What did the DGMO say? The DGMO said, no, nothing doing. You can fully expect a response to come your way, and sure enough, that response came.
With their
but it was
drones and
that
stuff.
same DGMO, a couple of days later, was trying to get on the phone. Now, I know the exact sequence of events which happened. It was at about 1 o'clock. There was an effort to get their DGMO, from their side, an effort to call our DGMO. The phone didn't work. There was some phone conversation issue at that particular stage. But they got the phone issues sorted. I think it was perhaps a message from the Pakistani embassy over here and because they haven't entirely shut down, as you know, that we want to get this conversation going, answer the phone or whatever, but let's blame it on the phone. And then sure enough, a couple of hours later, this DGMO of the Pakistan, the same guy who'd gone and rebuffed our DGMO a few days back, DGMO is Director General of Military Operations.
Yeah. Major General Kashif Abdullah, if I'm not mistaken, was their DGMO.
I'm not sure what his
name is. And ours, of course, is Lieutenant General Rajiv Ghai.
Yeah, at the time,
yeah.
So, and he said, no, the Pakistani gentleman said that, no, that's it, we don't want this to go on, to which our DGMO said, okay, fine. Agree to this, 5:30 p.m., we implement this, and the fighting stops. He says, okay, fine. Now, the Pakistanis, of course, broke that and took pot shots at us for, I think, in the next 48 hours or so, but eventually it did stop. It is, of course, a larger issue why it didn't stop immediately, and whether the Pakistani military acts in unison. That's a separate issue,
Discipline.
but that's the sequence of events, Shiv.
Incredible. A related point that Rahul Gandhi made, again, in the flow of things, he said, and this is actually ridiculous, but it's related to this. He says, imagine दो लोगों में लड़ाई हो रही है, एक आदमी दूसरे को घूसा मारता है, फिर कहता है एस्केलेशन मत करिए इसके आगे. आपने पाकिस्तान को बता दिया कि आप में लड़ने की पॉलिटिकल विल नहीं है, आप लड़ना ही नहीं चाहते हो.
No, but again, let's go back to what I said in the beginning. What does the Congress party or Rahul want? They want a nuclear war with Pakistan. Is there nothing called proportionate response?
Yeah.
Does he even understand what the impact of a full-fledged war between India and Pakistan would be? Forget about the loss of lives, which would be humongous. It would set our economy back 20-25 years.
Yeah.
Is that in our national interest to do that? Shouldn't smarter ways be fought to try and give Pakistan a lesson? Did we find a solution which has sent them a lesson? Yes. Now you can turn around and say this won't end terrorism. I think we both know it won't. But given the choices you have, and considering the fact that Pakistan is A, unpredictable, B, it's a nuclear country, C, there is no one who really knows about how united the entire Pakistani army setup is, D, there are reports about Asim Munir having to consolidate his own position over there, right? In a country and in a system like that, if you have managed to do this, take this decisive military action, right, and achieve what you have managed to achieve, then why are we having this debate in Parliament on these lines, which should be debated by all means? And if you were to ask me, a more sensible debate is what the point.
I was going
that
to come
does
on that,
Op Sindoor mean that terrorism will end? And of course the Congress and the opposition can say that, no, look, there is no evidence to suggest that what you have done is going to be enough. And the government would then need to be smart about it and say, no, you're quite right. And these are challenges we will continue to face.
The final point that requires a clarification before we move to part B of this podcast is P. Chidambaram, who is among many other things, a former Home Minister, so he knows exactly what he's talking about. And one comment that he made also resonated in Parliament, where he said, how do you know these were homegrown terrorists who killed all those people in Pahalgam? And a couple of things have happened after that as well, some of which you broke on NDTV, Vishnu. Was that a reasonable question to ask by Chidambaram? It was, in my view, ludicrous. He's said that two comments from a long interview have been taken and pushed out of context, but he did say those words. How are we so sure? I'm paraphrasing here, but how are we so sure they were not homegrown terrorists?
No, his exact words were, they are unwilling to disclose what the NIA has done all these weeks. Have they identified the terrorists, where they came from? For all we know, they could be homegrown terrorists. Why do you assume that they came from Pakistan? There is no evidence of that. Now, this is assuming that article in the Quint is accurate and that this quote is accurate because, as you mentioned, Chidambaram has said that he's been quoted out of context or not, or been inadequately or incorrectly quoted. But the fact of the matter is, perhaps we should have waited for that Parliament debate and raised this entire issue, because the evidence which then did come the way of the government and the opposition is that when Op Mahadev was launched, and incidentally this entire issue of why is the religious name been given, Op Mahadev is a peak. There is a peak Mahadev which is right there. So they said, looked at the peak, it's on their map, it's called Op Mahadev, so they called it Op Mahadev. There is no larger reason.
No communal reason.
No, there is no communal reason. And quite besides the point that the government doesn't have a problem in calling it Op Mahadev because they like that name. In this particular case, there's a peak over there. It's called Mahadev. So they're fighting over there. They called it Mahadev. That's all there is to it.
Locations are how they name their operations.
In most cases.
It's the normal thing to do
in many cases. Op Sindoor wasn't that.
But I'm talking about the counter-terror operations in Kashmir.
Right. So then, of course, there is this exact quote from Amit Shah when Op Mahadev took place, coincidentally, during this Parliament session, when 3 of these terrorists were eliminated. In total, 1,055 individuals were questioned over a span of more than 3 hours. Based on inputs gathered, composite sketches were prepared, etc., etc. They identified the people who harbored the terrorists, right? One of the bodies of these terrorists were brought to Srinagar. They were identified by those who were kept by our agencies. In other words, people who provided them cover identified the bodies and said, yes, this person is somebody So that was evidence. NIA had already arrested those who gave them shelter. Those who fed them were detained. When the terrorists' dead bodies reached Srinagar, they were identified by 3 people who carried out the terror attack in Pahalgam. They were identified as the 3 people who carried out the terror attack in Pahalgam. The FSL report of the cartridges from the terror attack was already ready. The rifles of the 3 terrorists were seized and matched with the Forensic Sciences Laboratory report. Further tests were carried out in Chandigarh yesterday. After that, it was confirmed that these 3 were those who carried out the terror attack.
That's as comprehensive as it comes.
No, it got even more comprehensive because they don't have that over here. He said that Pakistan ID cards have been found as well. Their voter ID cards from Pakistan have been found as well. Right. So then what is the problem? Are they Pakistani or not? It's been decidedly answered. There is also years of experience in knowing that fighters who actually come in from Pakistan who are far more skilled than your typical terrorist, have the ability to outlast our forces in many cases. Over the last several years, we've seen in the Rajoni, Poonch, Aknoor area, several encounters taking place, come in with a level of training, a level of using military communications, which is far superior to what homegrown terrorists typically are able to do.
Military
there is very little
terrorists.
doubt that and our forces can immediately identify that these are homegrown terrorists versus these are not homegrown terrorists. Look at the weaponry they're carrying.
Correct. There was an M4 and a couple of other things.
There was a Chinese comset. Apparently, there was a Chinese satellite communications device.
Comset, yes.
Your homegrown terrorists are not typically getting hold of that. So it's just a little bit of common sense. Right? That these were for these were foreign terrorists.
It occurs to me, and this kind of pisses me off actually.
Would a homegrown terrorist kill 26 Indians?
The point is, I think that this was a lost opportunity. I think the opposition with these, I'm going to go ahead and say it, these very stupid, easy to answer questions. were like full tosses to the government, right? They were angrily asked. They were oversimplified. They were painted with emotion and anger. Already putting the government in a kind of offensive sort of mode. As you've just very, very, very articulately answered, all of these questions have, not ambiguous answers, clear answers. So in that sense, it was like a full toss. Each of these was a full toss to the government, whereas the opposition, including Rahul and Gogoi and all these others, who are well within their rights to ask all these questions, Vishnu. I actually wish the debate went for longer so they could ask many more questions. They kind of squandered the opportunity by playing to the political gallery in the mistaken belief that these were questions that were going to pin the government down. The fact of the matter is, not only do these questions have categorical, clear-cut answers like you've just shown, but also these answers are happening in the backdrop of, and I'm saying this again, the success of Operation Sindoor. These are tiny little nitpicking questions with real answers in the backdrop of a successful operation, whereas the political intent in asking these very silly questions, in my view, my personal view, it's like cotton hitting a wall. It makes no difference. It's not stirring any citizen emotion at a time when the real story, and this is not narrative, and we both hate that word, is not that, oh my God, India could have done better or India should have done differently. The overwhelming evidence is that India did everything that it could and it did it really well. India was restrained. India, got its way. The outcome of this entire conflict was in India's favor entirely. And yet you've got, people believing what Trump is saying, pushing what they say is an agenda, that somebody else mediated this ceasefire. But the final question that I want to ask you, Vishnu, and you touched upon this a little earlier, is if all of these questions, and we're not saying these questions are stupid, maybe that may have been an intemperate word that I used, but that comes from a place of seeing this two-day debate in Parliament as a bit of a waste. I see this as a bit of a waste. It was overly, histrionic and political. It was a full toss to the government, like I said, whereas there were real questions that could have been asked. There were real points of debate that could have been had where citizens could have actually been informed about certain things, like what you said. Is this going to stop terror?
No, I do believe...
How many, when we say an act of terror is going to be an act of war next and the rules of engagement have changed, can the government tell us what those rules of engagement mean?
And can the government actually do this? I mean, switch on and off a war machinery all the time.
If 5 people are killed in a terror attack, do we go to war? Exactly. Or is there going to be a minimum number of people killed before we go to war the next time? There are many of these things that we don't know about.
But I do feel, Shiv, that there was one point Priyanka Gandhi made more forcefully than others, which I think is worth reflecting on. And she and a few others, that why was there security lapse in Pahalgam?
Yeah, at the Baisaran Valley. Yeah,
absolutely right.
Yeah,
why?
100%.
There has to be 100%. Accountability for that.
Yeah.
But rather than ask for the resignation of the Home Minister and others, the fact of the matter is that there will be terrorist attacks. It is impossible to guard every square inch, even along the line of control. And it's important for our political leaders to actually visit these areas to understand the dynamics of the fence, given the terrain which you can see with your own eyes, which you and I have seen. Yeah. It is not possible to physically cut off every inch of the line of control.
Yeah.
It's not. There are places where people will still come in.
Yeah.
Right? Given that, and that you're dealing with soldiers, terrorist soldiers from the other end, that will always happen. So the debate shouldn't be about let this person resign and let that person resign. It needs to be a really smart, focused topic on intelligence, on the nature of the threat which exists outside, the various groups that exist outside. When we talk about terror hubs, what exactly do we mean? What exactly are terror launch pads? How many of these are exactly there? What are we doing to enhance our surveillance? Have we seen any new patterns in training or behavior of terrorists? Why could this not have been a more important conversation? These terrorists went and killed so many people. whose responsibility is? It is India's responsibility.
Correct. Yeah.
It is a collective failing of the entire security setup. The response to that is not to call for resignations, right? Because this is something
that's
which
the
can
easy
happen
part.
on any day. It's easy. Call for his resignation.
But nuance is
right.
Nuance the political
nuance and
conversation.
political, right? They don't work together. When you want to score a political point, you throw nuance to very often, away. But I do believe that the answer to this is not about, and I'm not defending Amit Shah or anybody like that. I just believe that Parliament is an area where there are critical issues of national security directly linked to ensuring that terrorism is cut down, which needed to have been asked. Priyanka Gandhi raised an important issue. Who is responsible for this? There has to be an answer. But the debate got veered around. Once they started saying A should resign or B should resign.
Yeah. No, the debate, the intent of the questions becomes diluted when you're making suggestions of tactical errors, of aircraft lost, or why people's hands were tied. If those are your starting shots, then the rest of the debate kind of just meanders into the valley of politics, and that's one of the reasons why there was such a slanging match between the government and the opposition on a topic that should not have had any raised voices. I don't believe that this debate should have had any histrionics, but it began with shouting. There was shouting right through it, and there was shouting right at the end. The kind of tone and tenor of it was about point scoring. It was like, aha, I got you. Rather than, look, I support you completely in this. We are in this together. This is about India. The world is watching this debate as well. Everything you did was great and we applaud you for it. But there are these things that I think we should soberly discuss. And here is a fabulous opportunity to do it. And yet, this is what we're left with.
Yeah.
Parliament time is precious, Vishnu. I mean, how many parliament sessions after conflicts have you covered? You've seen Kargil, you've seen Balakot, we're looking at this now, we've seen Uri as well. All of these have been fabulous opportunities, which in my view make me wonder whether the quality of the political conversation, the sort of desperation to, for finger pointing, this tutu meme style debate and jousting in Parliament means we can never really have a serious conversation.
No, and my final thought to that is this. In as much as we cover national security issues, we are exposed to and have been exposed to a political system which bedrocks everything that we do in journalism.
Yeah.
It is my sincere belief that no political party will gain politically if you are raising issues of national security which end up being seen as questioning India's ability to respond or to fight. It has to be done in a smarter way. If you make Rafale into a political issue when your country needed to have desperately needed to have fighter aircraft, and ultimately the government was proven right in the Supreme Court, was that the right way to do it? Why are you asking for Trump has gone and said this, when in fact your foreign minister has gone on record and said in fact America had nothing to do with this, right? Why are you finger pointing on the loss of aircraft, right? Though I do believe the government needs to come clear on that, right?
Yeah, we're clear about that. Yeah.
But while not focusing enough on the outcomes, why were there no questions which were asked, for example, of were you, sir, able to identify the number of losses sustained by the Pakistani Air Force on the ground based on the satellite imagery which exists?
Yeah.
How is that not important?
Didn't come up even once.
It didn't come up. What is the military impact of India's BrahMos strikes? Have we come of age as a nation in terms of our weapon systems? Where were we found lacking?
Yeah.
Because not everything worked.
Yeah.
Nothing always works perfectly on every occasion. What more needs to be done? What you talk about Atmanirbharta and defense. This was a great opportunity in Sindoor, but beyond the successes that we have learnt about, what more needs to be done? Can you tell us that some things didn't work, for example? If so, what are you doing about it?
Yeah.
Why can't this be the conversation?
I'm just wondering, I don't know very much about Parliament protocol on these matters, but I'm just thinking this was a debate where you had all of your people's representatives inside the two houses, and there should have been at least one moment where the incredible work of the Air Force and the Army and the Navy was actually showcased. Those incredible pictures that you accessed, Vishnu. The world watching, the country watching. We assume that everybody's watching everything in the media and the news channels and social media. But there is an entire citizenry in every part of this country that looks at Parliament very differently. They genuinely see Parliament as an august house of the people. Their man or woman sitting in Delhi and, talking about issues that concern them. We may not even be able to reach those people, but they look at Parliament. And I'm just wondering how wonderful it would have been for all of those 56 odd images that you got, those satellite images which are there with the Indian Air Force, should have been put up on a huge screen
and
for
explain,
these people to watch
and understand
and see what India did.
Yeah.
Why did nobody think of that? Why was it only this kind of slanging, this constant baiting, this belligerence, this aggression, this attempt to trip people up on questions that ultimately, were just washed away by the government.
Why did no country in the world name Pakistan by name?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yeah.
What has happened in the United Nations Security
Story
Council?
that you broke.
Right? TRF has been named. Where does TRF come from? It's a Pakistani entity. What is the significance of that? Why did it happen while the session was happening? Why did parliament leaders, opposition leaders not come and say that, no, we've been making all of these statements about India not receiving enough international support in our eyes, but yes, we acknowledge the fact that a UN Security Council organization has now made mention of the TRF group. The importance of this should not be lost on anybody. Yeah. And can I finally make one final point? Why are we looking for international support, or what America, France, or whichever country have to actually say, on the success of or whether they have named Pakistan or not named Pakistan? Have we destroyed terrorist camps? Yes. Have we destroyed partly their air bases? Yes. Have we military achieved whatever we could without going into a full-blown war? Yes. Then where is the debate?
Yeah.
Who cares? Who
Correct.
cares if some country in the world has not named Pakistan? That is for them to do. That is not for them to do.
Yeah.
You can perhaps make the point that the External Affairs Ministry needs to do more to try and ensure that Pakistan is named.
Yeah.
But what was the objective over here? The objective was to send Pakistan a message. Who sent them that message? That country out there or us? We send them the message. When we did that, were we successful? Yes, we were. If that is the case, then what is the debate over here?
I think from the opposition's perspective, just to use some military jargon, it was a very tactical debate. There was nothing strategic about it, in my view at least. I'm going to be trolled for it. People might say that, you are attacking the opposition because they were asking questions. In my view, they were wasted questions. They were questions with answers. There was no vision in this debate, and in my personal view, journalistically and as a citizen, it was 2.5, 3 days of parliament time completely lost. Vishnu has enunciated how much better, how much stronger the debate could have actually been if some of these more searching questions could have been asked, rather than kitne fighter gire and were your hands tied, or Pakistan ko kyo bataya, or when you had them pinned down, why didn't you go and finish the job? This is all myopic, short-sighted bullshit in my view, and I think it's a real pity that we haven't yet become a country, despite a historic military operation, being able to have a really solid conversation about it in the highest in the highest house in the land. So, Vishnu, thanks very much for that. I don't want to end on that dark note, because Operation Sindoor is only under pause. It's not over yet. We don't wish for more combat. India is a country that signaled restraint right from the start, and that goes to the heart of many of the issues that were raised as well. But we'll keep you posted. That's all we can say. Vishnu and I have our eyes constantly on everything that's happening in the military, so I can promise you that Operation Sindoor will continue to resonate. Thanks, Vishnu, and thanks very much for watching.
Thanks very much. Goodbye.